Hi, it's Hope and welcome to the video. This, as you can tell by the title and the thumbnail, is going to be my November TBR, which will be chosen for me by what prompts I get from my Bookopoly board, which is 100% stolen from Becca from Back on the Books. This is actually kind of inspired by her 2021 Bookopoly-a-thon board, so credits to her, and I'll leave her channel below. Before we get into what my November picks are, let me just do a quick, how I did last month and how many rolls that means we're doing this month, even though I said I'm not doing punishments, but still just kind of a quick overview. So last month I got 9 prompts, but 13 books because one of the prompts gave me 5 books. Now, I did say that as long as I read one book for that one prompt, it counts as completed, and I have read books for 8 out of the 9 prompts, and the only one that I haven't started is actually right behind me, is Cemetery Boys, but that will be read before the end of the month because I'm planning on starting it here in a few days. I'm reading it with the timeline, and the book doesn't start until October 28th or 29th. I have the information on my computer somewhere, but so that one will be read. I'll fix those later. So no punishments, even though I said I wasn't doing any punishments, but still it would have been nice to, it was nice to see that I didn't didn't get a punishment on a month I said that I wouldn't get a punishment. I'm just gonna shut up. So that means that we are doing 6 rolls, which 6 is my basic. Unless I roll a double, then a prompt, a roll gets added, which means an additional prompt. And so I will insert the clips of me rolling, talk about the book that I selected, and all of that. So let's just get on with the first roll. So here is the board, and we're going to do the 6 rolls. So let's just start off with roll number 1, which is 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. A poll pick. So I'll put a poll up, I think, on Twitter, and I'll see what is picked. So the first prompt was poll pick, which I put up a poll with 4 little hearts that corresponded with books. So there was Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman, Charm by Tracy Wolff, and I can't remember what I put as the 4th one. A Shadow in the Ember by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman one. This is the sequel to Scythe, which I just read last month in October. And essentially in Scythe, we are in this kind of dystopian, utopian world where death has been conquered, and to deal with the population, there are certain people that are scythes, which basically means that they kill people to lower the population, or glean them as they call it, and we follow Citra and Rowan as they become apprentice scythes to eventually become proper scythes, and they are trained 2 very different ways, and we kind of see how that reflects them and how that changes them. And going into Thunderhead, we are continuing that story, and this is a reread for me because I read it in, I think, about this time, 2019, so it's been about 3 years since I read it, so definitely need to do a reread. Also, I have an arc of Gleanings that comes out in 2 weeks, so should probably at least get closer to being able to read that, and I'm really excited to do a reread of this. Roll number 2. Okay, so roll number 2 of 7. Okay, but that gives us 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So who means a not well-known author, or an author that's new to me that I haven't heard of before hearing about their one book. So just kind of like an unknown author, basically. Roll number 2 gave us a double, so instead of 6, we're doing 7. Perfectly okay. And for that is Who. Now this is just kind of a underrated and unknown author or something like that. And for this, I'm picking Spellcaster by Carolyn Schultz. This is the sequel to Spellbound, which essentially we follow Emma, who has to move from her small town to New York to like move in with her aunt. She attends this new school, and then weird things kind of start to happen, and then we go from there. And Spellcaster is obviously the sequel. It wraps up the duology, and Carolyn Schultz isn't a popular author. I didn't know about this author until May, when my best friend Morgan convinced me to read it. Like, was like, hey, add this to your TBR at some point. And I was like, okay. And then I read the first book in June, and like, I haven't heard anybody else ever mention this author in anything. So definitely an underrated author slash unknown author slash just a perfect pick for the Who prompt. So roll 3 of 7, 2 and 4 gives us 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Randomize your TBR. So I have to randomize my Goodreads, like all the books on my want to read, whatever I randomize a number, whatever book that correlates to, I have to either read that book, or if it's like a second book in a series that I pick, I read the first book, or like etc. If I don't have access to the book, then I can randomize again. For Randomizer TBR, I'm going to put in the clip of me getting a number for randomizing my TBR and then what book it correlates. So I'll put those clips in now. So here is my Goodreads, and I'm just gonna time lapse this of me scrolling because it's gonna take a few seconds. It was 2:27. So Where I End and You Begin by Preston Norton. Cool, I own that. And as you could see by that, I got Where I End and You Begin by Preston Norton. This, I don't remember much about this. This was one of my impulsive book outlet orders where I was like, ooh, that sounds interesting, adds it to shelf, doesn't actually read it. So I'll just quickly try to read you the thing. Ezra Selvin is an anxious, neurotic insomniac who spends his nights questioning his place in the universe and his days obsessing over Imogen, a nerdy girl with gigantic eyebrows and a heart of gold. For weeks, Ezra has been working up the courage to invite Imogen to prom. The only problem is Imogen's protective best friend, Winona Jones. Winona has blue hair, jams to 80s rock, and has made a career out of tormenting Ezra for as long as he can remember. Then, on the night of a total solar eclipse, something strange happened to Ezra and Winona, and they wake up in each other's bodies. Not only that, they begin randomly swapping back and forth every day. Ezra soon discovers Winona's huge crush on his best friend Holden. With no end to their curse in sight, Ezra makes Winona a proposition. While swapping bodies, he will help her win Holden's heart, but only if she helps him woo Imogen, and it's that. This sounds very interesting because I haven't really read anything where characters swap bodies, and it's very interesting that they basically like swap back and forth each day. So like their own bodies, the other person, their own bodies, the other person. And I just feel like it would be kind of an interesting concept, and I haven't heard anybody really talk about this. So it might be good, it might be bad, who knows? Roll 4 of 7, 3, and fuck off. It had to be a double 3 again. Are these dice broken? I swear. But okay, so this is now 4 of 8. Dear Lord, help me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A fantasy. So just any book that is considered fantasy. I like that prompt. I can think of multiple books I want to read next month. Like in November here. That works for that. So apologize if the camera angle changed. I quickly had to run and do something, so camera angle might be a little different. But roll number 4 was a double, so we're up to 8. Could be better, could be worse. And that gave me fantasy, which I figured Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This is like a YA fantasy that everybody loves. It's made into a TV show, and this is the late night book rooming book club pick for November. I'm so excited to be doing my 3rd read of this. Kind of can't believe it's been 3, like this will be my 3rd time reading it. But this essentially, I always am very crappy at describing this, but basically we follow Alina, who discovers that she has these light powers, like these powers to summon light or summon the sun, as she's called the Sun Summoner. And basically, like, she's taken to the like country's like capital to train her abilities, because there are people in this world that have magic but just not of her kind, and that is a very, very, very fucking crappy description. Oh my gosh. And then there's also like this thing called like the Shadow Fold that like splits the country into 2, and it's believed that Alina can stop this from spreading and from being there. So yeah, I really enjoyed this the first 2 times I read it. I'm really excited to do a reread. It should be pretty quick because I've read it twice and it has pretty big text, so this will be, fingers crossed, a very easy read. Roll 5 of 8. 1. QB behind the camera just wanting to cry. So this was 5 of 9. Okay. So 1, 2. Oh, sorry, you didn't see that. 1, 2. A contemporary or romance. I'll also take that. That's fairly easy. Roll number 5 was also a double, so we're up to 9. Which is fine because it gave me contemporary / romance, which was perfect because I could fit The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This is the like book club pick for the Recreate Books book club, which is hosted by Ashley from Ashley's Media Addiction, and I am joining on as like a co-host for the month of November for The Hating Game. So kind of need to get it on my November TBR, right? But in this, essentially we follow Lucy and Josh, who both work for this like publishing company. It was 2 publishing companies that combined to make one, and so they are each kind of like, they have the same position basically, and they are kind of rivals because they view their jobs very differently. And when there is this new position that is like a level up from their current positions, they both are fighting to get that position, but they make an agreement that whoever gets the position, the other one will resign, because they hate the idea of being like under one another. And a romance forms along the way. It's Enemies to Lovers. It became a movie in 2021. Like, a movie came out, which I've yet to watch, so I'd be going into this completely blind, and I'm really excited to read this because I've heard good things, I've heard bad things, but I'm excited to read it and discuss it with the Recreate Books book club. I will leave the Twitter for the book club in the description, as well as Ashley's channel, because the live show will be on her channel. So yeah, this is roll number 6 of 9. And we got a 9. I will gladly take that. I'm just going to rotate this board. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So community shelf is the cards right here that are curled. And these are just a bunch of different prompts that aren't on the board that I want to do. So I'll just pick the top one, which is a free choice. So I get to pick what book I use. Like, I get to pick which book I read, and I get to pick it. That's it. Like, mood read, basically. Thank you. For rule number 6, the prompt was free choice, which it's not a mood read, but I have to pick a book right now, but I get to pick any book, and I'm picking Charm by Tracy Wolff. This is the 5th book in the Crave series, where we follow Grace, who after her parents pass away, she ends up having to attend this boarding school in Alaska that is ran by her uncle, and little does she know that there are paranormal creatures that attend this school. Like, it's a school for paranormal creatures, and things happen, and Charm takes place in the time frame between book 1 and 2, where things happen that us readers don't know right now. And I'm so excited to read this. I've been anticipating it since, honestly, I read the first book. I was like really excited, and then obviously once I got to book 4 and it ended, I was like, I need Charm like tomorrow, and it comes out on the 8th of November. So if you need me on the 8th of November, I do not exist. I will be reading this book, which is perfect because I was able to just slide it right into my TBR because I knew I was already going to be reading it. And also keep an eye out for a announcement with this series coming very, very soon. That's all I'll say. So roll 7 of 9 is 7. I'm just going to rotate the board. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. LGBTQ plus rep. Fairly easy. For roll number 7 gave us LGBTQ plus rep, and for this I'm reading King's Rising by C.S. Pacat. This is a new adult fantasy where in the first book, Captive Prince, we have Prince Damon, who ends up being enslaved by this other country, by more specifically Prince Laurent of this other country, and that's kind of all I can remember and all I can explain. That's a really crappy description, but basically Damon was supposed to be the king of his country, but his brother kind of stole the throne and then sent Damon away to this other country as a slave, and then he is the slave of Prince Laurent, and things happen. I honestly don't remember much from book 1 or 2, but I think I remember just enough that I will be able to read this book and finish the series, because this is the final book, so I'm actually finishing a series. Who would have thought? And so I'm excited to read this because it's finishing a series, and I've been meaning to read it for a while, but I just like never put it on my TBR, so maybe I might actually read it if it's on my TBR. Who knows? Roll 8 of 9. It's a 1, so that's 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So for feed scroll, so basically for this, I have to just scroll through any social media, and whatever the first book I see, if I haven't read it but I want to read it, that's the one I read. So fairly simple, but I'm kind of nervous. So for roll number 8, we got feed scroll, and for this I'm going to share a screen recording that I did when I was just scrolling through Instagram, and what book came out of that. And as you saw, A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is the second book in the ACOTAR series, or A Court of Thorns and Roses series. So basically in the first book, which is A Court of Thorns and Roses, we essentially follow Feyre, who she kills this wolf, and because of this, she doesn't realize that the wolf is a fairy, and because of this, she ends up having to spend the rest of her days in the fairylands, which no human wants to go there because it is apparently this dangerous place, but Feyre has to go as a punishment for killing the fairy, and things go from there. This is the second book. This is my favorite book in the series. I'm so excited to be doing a reread of this. It's a chunky book, but I'm going to be listening to the dramatized audiobook, which I cannot wait to listen to. This was originally on my October TBR, but I just didn't get around to it. But I've been staring at it while it's like in my basket of like TBR books like to read, and I'm like, I just want to pick you up. So I'm glad that I saw this on my feed scroll so I can put it on my November TBR to, fingers crossed, actually read it, because I love this book so much, and I'm so happy to be doing this reread of the series. So yeah. And will this be roll 9 out of 9? Let's see. It is. We got an 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Most recent purchase. So my most recent purchase that I have not read. So for most recent purchase, which is our 9th and final prompt, I'm going to be reading Ignite Me by Tahira Mafi. Now, this isn't technically my most recent purchase, but it's my most recent purchase that I actually want to read, and or won't be a reread from a recent perspective, because my other most recent purchases are a couple of copies of Red, White, and Royal Blue, a copy of One Last Stop, so copies of Crescent City, but those I don't have in my physical possession. Well, one of them I do, but I just don't want to read it right now. But I want to read this, so we're counting it. This is only from September, so we're breaking my rule. We're bending the prompt a little bit, but my game, my rules. So this is the third book in the Shatter Me series. The first book is Shatter Me, where we follow Juliet, who her touch is lethal, and after being imprisoned because of her powers for the last 260 some days, the reestablishment, or the government, wants to use her for her abilities, so she's taken out of prison, put into the reestablishment's hands, and things go from there. And this is the third book. Things are happening. I'm so excited to be doing a reread of this, because this is my favorite book in the Shatter Me series. So I'm excited to reread it, because I did read this in July of 2020. So it's been a little while since I've read this, and I need to continue series that I start, and even though this is a reread, it still counts to continuing a series because I restarted the series. So yeah. But what if I tell you that's not all for my TBR? Because it's not. I have 5 more books that I want to put on my TBR. These ones, if I don't read them, I don't get a punishment. Well, a couple of them I would get yelled at by my fellow co-host for it. So for the Riordan Along, which is a read along of all of Rick Riordan's middle grade and young adult books, which I co-host with Morgan from Morgan's Bookshelves. I'll leave her channel below, as well as both of our announcement videos and just all the information about that below. But in November, we are reading The Last Olympian, which is the 5th and final book in this series. If you do not know what this series is about, the first book, The Lightning Thief, we follow Percy Jackson, who discovers that he is a demigod, or the child of a god, and we go from there. And this is the 5th and final book in the Percy Jackson's and the Olympian series. We are also reading The Ultimate Guide and Percy Jackson's Greek Heroes, as those are 2 bonus books that are fairly quickly to read, so we're tacking them into November. So those are 3 books that I will be reading, as well as I will be trying to do a reread of A Shadow in the Ember by Jennifer L. Armentrout, so that I can read A Light in the Flame when it comes out. And so this is a new adult high fantasy so basically in this we follow Sarah, who was chosen from birth to be the person to kill the Primal of Death. Now, the Primal of Death is basically kind of a god of death, but even bigger than a god. And basically, Sarah has been trained as an assassin to do so, and she needs to fall in love with the Primal of Death because love is the only thing that can kill him. And it's a chunky book, and so is the sequel, so I will probably be prioritizing this more than my actual TBR books, if I'm going to be honest, because I loved this book so much. I'm so excited for the sequel. And so that is what I'm reading in November, or at least going to be trying to read in November, because I'm stating this now. If I do not read all of these books in November, I'm taking no punishments in December. And I will also say this now, I am not playing my game in December. I am doing kind of like a mood read December, where I try to finish up series that I really want to, read books that I have been meaning to read or saying I was going to read, and overall just allow myself to read what I want to read and enjoy it for the month of December, because, and like we'll call that like a little Christmas present to myself. Sorry for popping in here. I forgot to mention that I will also be trying to participate in the Nightmare Before Christmas readathon hosted by Sam from Yarn Reader. I'll leave the announcement video linked below, but I'm not setting a specific TBR because I'm just going to kind of shove books in there as I see fit. This takes place from the 6th through the, what day is it? The 6th through the 19th. And this is just inspired by The Nightmare Before Christmas and like some of the characters. And I will just kind of shove books in there as I see fit, but I just really wanted to pop in and quickly mention it because, and like past me kind of forgot to mention it, so I figured pop in, just mention it, and I will leave the announcement video down below. I've already said that, so back to the normal video. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!